I'm Lauren Tocci. I'm a member of the Cinema Committee and the co-curator of the First Saturday Horror Series, and these are my top 10 of the decade. My number 10 film of the decade is BlacKkKlansman. This is a film that I think packs an incredible punch. It's apropos, it's compelling, it balances humor with punches to the gut constantly throughout the film. The dance sequence, if we can call it that, in the film is to me one of the most beautifully crafted scenes of the decade, and I just think that this film is so deserving of all of the praise that it got and was deserving of even more awards that it didn't get. My number 9 favorite film is Creed. I'm a longtime fan of the Rocky series, but I would say that this is the best film in the Rocky series. Adonis Creed is a wonderful protagonist, and I think the direction that Ryan Coogler took the story in it really infused a lot of needed heart. It wasn't paint by numbers. He told the story in a way that really focused on familial issues, what it means to train to be a fighter, what it means to be a fighter in life, and I think that first sequence where Adonis is finally under Rocky's tutelage, that first fight sequence is like nothing I've ever seen before. I'm a boxing fan, and to me it's the most realistic depiction of boxing I've ever seen. My number 8 film is Us, and it's probably my favorite movie of this year. Jordan Peele, obviously Get Out is a tremendous film. I would say this is even a score better. The tension in this film is incredible in its pacing, in its delivery on that tension. The performances, of course, are stunning. Lupita Nyong'o's duality is truly remarkable to watch, but it's a film that I think really turns on some horror genre conventions and delivers on some really impactful messages, like deep hidden within. The imagery within the film, of course, is beautiful, and I just think it's such a fun horror film. My number 7 favorite film of the decade is Snowpiercer, which is intense. It's incredible. To me, it breathes a lot of life into this dystopian genre in a time in which I think we were getting so beleaguered by how much dystopia was being used, and appropriately so. I think this film kind of, bursts onto the scene, no pun intended, as it breaks through the ice, as something that shows why that genre and why those conventions work so well. My number 6 favorite film of the decade is Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I had a really hard time choosing between this and The Last Jedi because I love both, and I know that's not necessarily popular when it comes to The Last Jedi. But The Force Awakens to me is so much more than what it often gets labeled by as a love letter to the fans of New Hope or something that feels like a copy. To me, it improves upon a lot of those ideas. J.J. Abrams' direction in this film, the way in which he infuses humanity into stormtroopers, and I would say that Rey is the best protagonist of all of the Star Wars films. My number 5 favorite film of the decade is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. To me, I am a diehard Harry Potter fan. I have a Harry Potter dining room. I'm Gryffindor for life. But I think what makes this film so special is it's a film series that had to fulfill on a lot of promises to fans. You have the fruition of so much characterization. You have 3 people that you've watched grow from their childhood into essentially these warriors who have to take on this immense task where the stakes are life and death. It has to leave on a cliffhanger, but I think in itself it feels very complete. My number 4 favorite film of the decade is Brooklyn. Oh, I just love this film so. It's such a beautiful coming-of-age tale, but I think the thing that is so remarkable about it is the director made such a distinct choice to create these 3 separate sequences of the journey away from home, the trying to find identity within a new place, and then the journey back home, and recognizing that home is where you find a place, not just with a person or a set of ideals, but where you find yourself most at home in that space. And the way in which the cinematography blends kind of the beauty of like the Irish homeland with like the newness of like America in the 1950s, I think just works so brilliantly. Saoirse Ronan's performance is of course stunning in this. It has a quiet elegance. And there's a scene in the film where they make the decision to have Ailish hear an Irishman sing a song from her homeland when she's in New York, and it is one of the most wonderful and tear-inducing scenes in cinema, I think, in the decade. My number 3 favorite film is Super 8. What I love about this is I think it's something that J.J. Abrams knows how to do well. He knows how to like tap into nostalgia, but then turn nostalgia. And I think he tells a story that, you know, very easily it can get compared. It's E.T., it's Goonies, it's the films we grew up in, but it's the films we grew up with now growing with us, but still reminding us of childhood. It's one of those like kind of classic adventure tales that I think we all secretly wanted to live. I wanted to find an alien in my neighborhood. That would have been the coolest childhood. But I think beyond that, he tells a story of loss and how we reconcile that at young ages, how we find our sense of self with our parents, and how we kind of believe in the possibility of hope and the possibility of second chances. It's a really beautiful film. Number 2 is La La Land. From that opening sequence alone, this probably would have been on my list regardless, because Another Day of Sun is so intricately shot and is so vibrant. And of course this film is a love letter to the films of the 1940s, your big spectacle musicals. But I think what it does is it makes us understand why there's so much joy in that, and why there's so much joy in filmmaking itself. Not just filmmaking of that era, because that's not the only time which filmmaking was joyful, but where filmmaking can be so joyful now. My number 1 film of the decade is without a doubt Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water. When I saw this movie, I cried not because of the thematics, but because I had seen something so beautiful. I don't think my mind could comprehend it. That opening sequence of the camera slowly moving through the water and us coming into this sense of reality of space where the water so elegantly dissolves, and then this fairy tale begins, and the entire thing feels like a fairy tale, but these people in the film feel true and real. It is one of the most wonderful renderings I have ever seen of a love story, and just simply the cinematography is so beautiful. I could just cry again, and I may.